Bridesmaids groomsmen of Reddit. What's the most ridiculous request you had to endure for the couple's big day? I was supposed to be a bridesmaid in a wedding of a male friend. I had tried to befriend the bride because the groom was a childhood friend. All of the planning leading up to the big day was a total crap show, and she used our wedding chat to constantly discuss all of her problems with the groom. Ring was too small. They never talked about finances before getting engaged, and now she's not sure he makes enough. Can you get a prenup for children you don't have yet? Constantly telling us we were bad friends. Keep in mind we are all friends with the groom for many years before she was in the picture. I could write a novel about it. The final straw for me was when she asked me to plan a bachelorette party, but couldn't tell me anything about what she was interested in doing. Clubbing versus spa day versus beach trip, etc. Other than nothing too wild, but definitely cost effective. And when I presented her with a plan, told me I was a terrible friend and that was the worst bachelorette plan she had ever seen. I was replaced as a bridesmaid, did not attend the wedding, and do not speak to either of them anymore. I think you got the better end of that deal. Outdoor wedding with no backup plan on the shores of Lake Michigan. Pouring rain and wind, but the happy couple requested no umbrellas because they wanted to be able to see the faces in the crowd. They were able to see the very wet and angry faces of people whose clothes were ruined while the bride and groom stayed dry under the gazebo. The juxtaposition there is actually kind of hilarious. In college I was a best man for a wedding where the bride demanded we all wear designer suits. I had to sell a guitar to afford just the rental. I had no money before, and after I had no money and one less guitar. Then at the reception the groom pulled me aside and told me it was my job as best man to make sure their marriage went well. I was supposed to check in and help them with marriage stuff to make sure they didn't get divorced. I looked him in the eye and said, I can't be responsible for your marriage. He didn't talk to me from that second until just a couple months ago, 6 years after his wedding. I'm far from an expert on marriage, but asking your best man to be the guardian angel of your marriage is pretty weird. Not being able to leave the head table to talk to my friends the whole night. My sister addressed my invite to me and a male friend I had known for about 10 years. A male friend whom she had always had a huge crush on. Even better was that I had been dating my boyfriend for 2 years at this point, and my male friend was engaged. When I asked my sister why she put my friend as my +1 and not my boyfriend, she said that she didn't want some random guy in her wedding pictures. I went to her wedding solo. No surprise, she and her husband divorced 2 years later, and I have been happily married to that random guy now for 15 years. $500 pants. After I refused the bride freak because it made the wedding party uneven, groom bought my pants. I wore them once. They divorced. He seems a lot happier with his new wife. Short and sweet, like that couple's marriage. I was a bridesmaid and Lamiso was a groomsman, and we were banned from looking at, speaking to or dancing with each other for fear of outcuting the happy couple. We'd been together for 5 years at this point. We didn't do it, but the request alone was outrageous. Sounds like by not being massive dirtbags, you would have outcuted them easily. My college roommate invited me to his wedding in Vegas. I live in Colorado, so attending this wedding already required me to travel and pay for a hotel. The invitation specified that the group should book their reservation at Aria under a certain group code to receive a discounted rate. Their discounted room rate at Aria is over $300 a night. When I told him I simply could not afford to pay for round-trip flights and a hotel room for 3 nights at $300 a night, he flipped his crap. He said that we all needed to be in the same hotel for ease of plans or some crap like that. He expected me, a then 24-year-old female, to come out of his wedding in Vegas alone and pay over $300 a night for accommodations. The kicker? He did not even give me a +1. I later found out that the groom was so pushy about everyone staying at Aria because the bride and groom received a free hotel room if 7 hotel rooms were booked under their discount code. It was really scummy of them to pressure their friends into booking expensive hotel rooms at their destination wedding and lie about the reasoning. Anyway, the bachelor party is scheduled for the night before the wedding. The groomsmen had put a lot of effort into planning an awesome bachelor party and they had pre-purchased tickets for everything. Well, the groom is simply a no-show for his own bachelor party, so I got to attend the bachelor party in the groom's absence, which was pretty awesome. We had a blast. Also, The night after the wedding, the bride was kicked out of the Britney Spears concert for trying to climb on the stage. I can include the group text screenshots for that whole fiasco if anyone is interested. Interested. Completely and totally interested. A slight twist to the question. I'm the bride. I had told people my wedding date almost a year ago. One of my friends messages me a few months ago asking me if I could change my wedding date, cause another of her friends just set her wedding date for 3 weeks before. She told me it'd be great if she could attend both of our weddings in one trip. Got asked to stand up for a wedding during culinary school for a high school friend. She said she didn't want us to buy presents, but wanted us to help with various wedding things since it was a backyard wedding. Like someone help with the flowers, another do favors, table setting, etc. She wanted to know if I could help with dinner. I said sure, and asked her what she wanted help with, figuring it was prep work for someone else to do. No, she wanted me to handle the whole dinner, as in cooking for 200 people. As a 19-year-old having only done a year culinary school, she also wanted me to help pay for the food I'd be making. As a gift, she wanted me to make Caesar salad, potatoes au gratin, and roast enough ducks for 200 by myself, and pay for about half of it. I was learning how to be a pastry chef. I explained and she just stared at me blankly. I told her I could do the cake easily enough, but she insisted she wanted a real cake from a bakery. I told her there wasn't any feasible way I could do it, not only because that's freaking crazy, but because I literally wasn't trained to do it, and I got disinvited from the wedding. They apparently served bagged salad, boxed potatoes and roasted chicken from Walmart. My friends were getting married, and my girlfriend and I were both in the wedding party. The bride's mother suggested that my girlfriend get hair extensions to be in the wedding to not ruin the photos for her daughter. My girlfriend has very short hair, because she has Graves' disease. Her hair has become very brittle and started falling out in clumps. I'm sure it wasn't intended to be rude, but telling somebody that have to put on a wig because you don't think they look good enough to be in your daughter's photos seems pretty terrible to me. Holy crap. I hope the bride went apocrap on her mother for that. I definitely would have. The groom asked me to keep an eye on his tux for signs of dandruff. He had a bad case of it at the time. I told him to choose a light colored tux, but the bride insisted the guys wear black, a color that, of course, showed every particle of dandruff. So I placed a small brush in my pocket, and every so often would dust him off as discreetly as possible throughout the day. So you were a literal groomsman. My sister just came home from a weekend trip to Miami that the bride demanded she attend. Why Miami, you may ask? To get drunk and spend time in the sun and party all night? Apparently not. She forced her bridal party to go to Miami on their own dime, to go to some spas and be in bed by 10. She also only booked 2 hotel rooms with 1 bed each for 8 women. I advised my sister to get some better friends. My friend decided to get married at a resort in Aspen. We don't live in Colorado and he wasn't offering to pay for flight, hotel, tux, etc. for anyone except him and his wife. They were broke 23-year-olds just like us. Neither parents had the money either. It was a noon wedding and a 2-hour reception immediately following. That's it. Everyone fly home. The bride and groom didn't even stay the night. He got so mad at me when I told him we won't be able to make it. 5 years later he still doesn't talk to me. My best friend asked me to dye my hair from blonde to brown because her other bridesmaids all had brown hair and she wanted to be the only one with blonde hair. She did pay for me to get it done at a professional salon, so I didn't mind too much, and her photos did look amazing after. However, I definitely have a few friends who thought I was crazy for agreeing to that request. Honestly, relative to the other ones in the thread, this is a lot better because she paid for it and didn't make you pay an exorbitant amount of money. I'm from Asia and I went to college in US. I was shocked when I found out that bridesmaids, they have to pay for their own dresses. So if the bride told you to wear this specific dress from Vera Wang, you actually had to pay for it yourselves. And I think plane tickets for bridesmaids and groomsmen are also not provided if it's a destination wedding. It's so bizarre. From the UK and I was the same. If you ask someone to be your bridesmaid or best man usher, it's generally understood that the bride and groom will provide your suit, if hired, and buy the bridesmaids' dresses. You normally have to have your own shoes etc, but I wouldn't have dreamed about asking any of the wedding party to put their hands in their pockets for my wedding. My friend was set to get married in November of 2016. He got engaged in October of 2015. From the time he got engaged until April 2016 he continued to add things onto my to-do list for the wedding. It seemed like once a month he'd say, by the way, I need you to do this and buy this for the wedding. My wife was also a bridesmaid. The bride had picked out very expensive outfits for the bridesmaids. $300 dresses, $150 shoes, and $75 costume jewelry. There was also a weekend at the beach planned for the summer and my wife was responsible for the food at the bride's shower. I still have no idea what they meant by being in charge of food, as no matter how much we asked they acted offended. Does that mean provide food? Organize food? What kind of food was expected for the 40 people who were expected to come? No answers were given. In March 2016 my friend had pneumonia and was hospitalized. In total, he was down with it for about 3 weeks. During that time the wife and I talked about the wedding and totaled up how much it would cost us. We ended up with a figure of about $1,500 for a wedding an hour away from where we live, which we thought was absurd. The wife and I both worked, but didn't make enough money to drop that much on someone else's wedding. So when my friend healed up, I went by his house and told him the wife was going to drop out as a bridesmaid as the cost had risen too high. We were also upset with how they had been treating us as friends. He was initially surprised, but then we continued talking. The next day, after getting an earful from the fiancé I'm sure, he called me and told me I was out as the best man and to never speak to him again. I was the best man for my brother's wedding. I'll never forget the following directions he gave me. Hey butcher, just like Vlad, I need you to go put the flowers in the car, call the photographer, and find my suit. I'm going to go shotgun 2 beers while I take a crap. Not totally ridiculous, but it still makes me laugh. I'm a photographer and my cousin wanted me to shoot their wedding for free as a gift to them. Wedding was also on the other side of the country, and they wouldn't be paying for my flight or room. My pricing typically starts at a few grand and goes up. I was still willing to do it until my cousin wanted me to also throw in finished prints. 350 retouched pics, basically about $3K worth of photo work. Suddenly I came down with a case of something else to do that weekend. She still doesn't talk to me, and that's just fine. She never really talked to me before either, come to think of it. My best man had to hover a 5 inches mini crown 1 inches over my head non-stop for 40 long minutes of the ceremony, a feature of my bride's Greek Orthodox Church tradition. The maid of honor visibly outperformed him, with half as many right-left arm switches. His shoulders burned for days. Bridesmaid to my sister. She demanded that I grow my fringe, bangs, out months before because quote I don't want anyone's hair blowing in the wind. It all has to stay perfectly still. Also, I'm quite pale so she insisted I had to wear fake tan. I originally bought a pale tan color but the morning of the wedding she made me pile it on. It was pretty hot that day so subsequently, it stained my pale pink dress. Was still an amazing wedding regardless. Also, I like to think that when I get married I have 2 ridiculous request cards. 2 things she has to do and I'll bring up her wedding if she refuses. Tell her you need to be the tannest person there, so she can't tan at all leading up to your wedding. She needs to wear sunscreen whenever she goes outside for even a minute. I don't know that this is ridiculous or that I endured it, but I was asked to be the maid of honor. I'm a dude, a manly dude. She didn't really have any female friends, at least none she could count on, as her bachelorette party proved. We settled on the term bridesknave. It was a beautiful wedding. As a dude who had a female friend as a groom's mom in my party, I salute you. My future sister-in-law has made it very clear that she wants her bachelorette party to be a week in California. We live in New Jersey. That means I would have to take a week off from work. My husband would have to take a week off from work to stay with our children. I would have to pay for my airfare and hotel and all the week's activities, and pay my chef for her, since everyone knows the bride doesn't pay for anything on her bachelorette party. When I said I'd have to see if it's something that we could make work, she basically just said, Well, only the people that really love me will be there. I'm only going to get married once, so I have every right to be selfish. Good luck marrying that one. I'm only going to get married once. I have my doubts. We went to their Jack and Jill bachelorette party in Atlantic City on Labor Day weekend. Cost a fortune for the room. He got pee when I wouldn't gamble after paying for his steak dinner and expensive scotch. Then got loaded, got into a fight at the nightclub and disappeared. Yeah, we don't hang much anymore. I wouldn't gamble after paying for his steak dinner and expensive scotch. Ugh. My friends were champs and paid for several things during my bachelor party, but I expected none of it. If I'd had to pay my way the whole weekend, I would have been fine with it. Your bachelor party is a time to celebrate with your friends, not extract money out of them. I was a bridesmaid for a high school friend. Not a super close friend, but whatever. At the time, I had lightened my hair color and it didn't turn out well. Before the wedding I had it cut and changed back to my original color. The color I had all my life except for the awful month or so of bleach. Figured the least I could do was not subject the wedding photos to my hair disaster. I showed up for the wedding ceremony, and the bride had an epic meltdown, because now all her bridesmaids wouldn't be blue-owned. Apparently, I wasn't asked because she wanted me, just my blonde hair. I guess, in retrospect, that explained those awful candy pink dresses we had to wear and pay for. I knew a woman who was a bridesmaid in a relative's wedding. She was married and had been trying to get pregnant for a while. Finally, her and her hubby got lucky and she conceived. The bridezilla got furious and kicked her out of the wedding because she would be pregnant in the pictures. 3 months later, sadly, my friend miscarried. The bride called her with a response along the lines of good. Well, now you can be back in the wedding. Needless to say, she didn't even attend it. That is fricked up. It was my wife who was one of the bridesmaids. The couple was way oversexed or trashy. I'm not sure which, but they wanted the entire wedding party to do a group pic and just their lingerie boxers, except the bride and groom, of course. She noped out of that, but apparently the other 2 girls and the groomsmen went for it. They still did the pic anyhow. Then they wanted the groomsmen and maids to pair up and kiss for a picture. None of them knew each other. Apparently she was the only one who didn't. Then they basically shamed her for opting out of both of those to the point she came and found me crying. So we went home. I worked for a country club during my college years, and I recall one wedding party that thought it would be a brilliant idea to give their 300+ guests the option to order their own steak and have it cooked to their preference as their entree. This may not sound like a big deal, but custom cooking 300+ steaks meant that it took forever to get everyone served, and since there was limited capacity with the stovetops in the kitchen for this type of cooking, the food came out in intervals. This was chaos as a result for me and the other wait staff, because half the party had eaten and were drinking and dancing, and the other half was still sitting at the tables waiting for their food. During the point when the bride and groom were getting ready to cut the cake and have champagne poured, we were finally serving the remaining guests their steaks. To add to this delay pushed the event an extra hour and a half over its expected time frame and resulted in us having to keep the venue and bars open longer than the agreed upon time, and this pee off the fill as a result. By 11:30 PM the man was shouting at the manager to close the fricking bar so people would begin to leave, and was chasing the bride and groom around and telling them to get in the fricking limo and go away, as it was costing him about $7,000 an hour extra to keep the staff and venue open. I was 8.75 per hour, and I also didn't get gratuities as I was a seasonal hire. Yeah, I said frick this after a summer and a half working there. Left to work at a grocery store, and I enjoyed it far more for only slightly less base pay. I was the maid of honor. She demanded I come pull weeds out of her parents' yard a day or 2 before the wedding because the reception was at her parents' house. I had already gone through multiple ridiculous requests the week leading up to the wedding. So this one I put my foot down and said no. Got through the wedding. No longer friends. She did send a gift when I got married. A centerpiece from her wedding that I had helped make. I'm not thinking you lost any big deal in that one, Ms. Gardner. You've been visited by the rowdy rough doggo of the Wild West. Many yeehaws of good fortune and delicious dishes of chicken parmigiana will come to you if you comment giddy up papa and subscribe to AskReddit. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.